The Helios station's observation deck fell silent as the unknown ship limped out of hyperspace. Chief Science Officer Sarah Chen watched through reinforced windows as the vessel's crystalline hull caught Sol's light, fracturing it into prismatic patterns across the station's exterior. The ship's organic curves and translucent surfaces marked it as definitely non-human, but what drew everyone's attention was the massive damage along its port side, like something had taken a bite out of living crystal. "Are we getting any readings?" Sarah asked, her fingers dancing across her neural interface. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez shook his head, dark eyes fixed on his holographic display. "Nothing conventional, ma'am. But there's something strange. The quantum signature is all wrong, like it's partially out of phase with normal spacetime." Before Sarah could respond, the alien ship pulsed with inner light. A transmission burst through every communication channel simultaneously, resolving into a chorus of harmonized voices that made her teeth ache. "We seek sanctuary. The harmony comes. Please. We are the last of the crystalline Concordat." Admiral James Chen, Sarah's father and commanding officer of Helios Station, stepped forward. His weathered face remained impassive, but Sarah recognized the slight tension in his shoulders, the same tension she'd seen during the Mars crisis 20 years ago. "Full quarantine protocols," he ordered, "and get me a direct line to Earth Command. Something tells me this is bigger than a standard first contact scenario." Within hours, the station's medical bay had been converted to accommodate the crystalline beings. Sarah stood beside Dr. Yuki Tanaka as they examined their first patient, a roughly humanoid figure composed of living crystal that pulsed with internal light. "We are the memory singer," the being communicated through a hastily modified translator. "We carry the last fragments of our civilization's knowledge." "What's pursuing you?" Sarah asked, noting how the crystal being's light dimmed at the question. "The harmony. They consume consciousness, transform it. They found us centuries ago, but we hid, scattered. Now they've learned to track quantum resonance. They follow the songs of our minds." Dr. Tanaka's instruments chimed. "Fascinating. Your neural patterns exist in a quantum state, don't you? That's why conventional scanners couldn't read you." The memory singer's light pulsed in what Sarah interpreted as agreement. "It is how we think, how we remember, but it is also how they find us. And now, they will find you too." Admiral Chen's voice came through Sarah's neural link. "Dr. Chen, Command needs everything you can learn about these harmony, if they're as dangerous as our guests suggest." Sarah watched the memory singer's light flutter in patterns that reminded her of a frightened heartbeat. "Understood, Admiral. But I think we need to move fast. According to our guests, we've just been marked for extinction." Over the next 72 hours, Sarah and her team worked continuously with the crystalline refugees. They learned that the harmony was a collective consciousness that had evolved beyond physical form, existing primarily in quantum states. They consumed other conscious beings, forcibly integrating them into their collective. "But why run to us?" Sarah asked during one session. "Humanity's quantum technology is primitive compared to yours." The memory singer's response was unexpected. They produced a harmonic tone that resolved into a holographic projection of Earth's cultural broadcasts. Music, art, television, social media. You create constantly, chaotically. Your consciousness resonates across multiple quantum states without technology. The harmony cannot predict you, cannot consume what they cannot understand. Admiral Chen called an emergency meeting in the station's secure conference room. The holographic displays showed tracking data from deep space sensors, revealing something massive moving through the void between stars. "The harmony will reach Sol in approximately 6 months," he announced to the assembled staff. "Earth Command is divided on how to proceed. Half want to turn the crystalline refugees away, hope the harmony passes us by. The other half want to fight." Sarah finished. "But how do you fight something that exists primarily in quantum states?" A new voice joined the conversation. Dr. Isabella Martins, Earth's leading quantum physicist, her hologram flickering to life above the conference table. Perhaps we don't need to fight them on their terms. The crystalline refugees say we're naturally unpredictable to these beings. Maybe that's not just a curiosity. Maybe it's a weapon. Sarah felt a chill as she understood. You want to weaponize human consciousness? Not exactly. Dr. Martins smiled. I want to weaponize human creativity. Every song, every story, every piece of art we create resonates in quantum states the harmony can't predict. If we can amplify that effect. Admiral Chen's expression hardened with determination. How long would it take to develop this technology? With the crystalline refugees' help, maybe 4 months. But we'll need every artist, musician, and dreamer we can find. This won't be a conventional war. It'll be a battle of consciousness itself. Sarah looked through the observation window at Earth hanging below, billions of minds creating, dreaming, and imagining at this very moment. For the first time since the refugees arrived, she felt hope. Then we better get started, she said. Humanity's about to weaponize its imagination. The quantum resonance chamber hummed with discordant energy as Sarah Chen watched Earth's first line of defense take shape. Around her, a chorus of human voices sang in carefully calculated patterns while artists worked on massive digital canvases, their neural interfaces translating imagination directly into quantum fluctuations. The readings are off the charts, Dr. Martins announced, her holographic form flickering with excitement. Each creative act generates quantum ripples that should be completely unpredictable to the harmony's consciousness. The memory singer floated nearby, their crystalline form refracting the chamber's ethereal light. Your species creates such beautiful chaos. Even now, we struggle to comprehend how your minds work. Sarah smiled, remembering their first attempts to explain human dreams to the crystalline refugees. They found the concept of unconscious imagination both terrifying and fascinating. How long until the harmony reaches the outer system? 36 hours, Admiral Chen's voice came through her neural link. The Jupiter defense grid is ready, but honestly, we have no idea if conventional weapons will have any effect. The past 4 months had transformed humanity's understanding of consciousness itself. Working with the crystalline refugees, they'd learned that thought itself had quantum properties, and human minds were uniquely chaotic in how they generated these effects. Every dream, every creative impulse, every flight of imagination created ripples in quantum space that the harmony found impossible to predict or absorb. The station shuddered suddenly, alarms blaring. Sarah rushed to the observation deck, her heart stopping at the sight before her. The space between Jupiter and Saturn had twisted. Reality itself seemed to fold, creating patterns that hurt her eyes to look at. They're here early, Admiral Chen announced, his voice tight with tension. All stations, initiate Protocol Dreamcatcher. Across Earth and throughout the solar system, millions of human minds connected through the quantum network. Artists, musicians, writers, and dreamers poured their creativity into the defensive grid. The resonance chamber around Sarah blazed with energy as the combined imagination of humanity weaponized itself. The harmony manifested as shifting patterns of light and darkness, their vast consciousness pressing against the edges of normal space. Their first attack wasn't physical. Instead, waves of ordered thought crashed against human minds, trying to impose their version of harmony. But humanity had prepared for this. The defensive grid activated, transforming the chaotic quantum resonance of human creativity into a shield. Where the harmony sought to impose order, they found endless variation. Where they tried to predict, they encountered spontaneity. It's working, Dr. Martins exclaimed, her hologram dancing with data. Their consciousness can't establish a foothold. They can't predict where our thoughts will go. The memory singer's light pulsed with what Sarah had learned to recognize as amazement. Never in our history, we sought to hide from them, to shield our thoughts. But you turn your very nature into a weapon. The battle for consciousness itself raged across the solar system. The Harmony's attempts to impose order were met with human chaos, every attack countered by bursts of creativity, imagination, and dreams. But Sarah noticed something troubling in the data. "They're adapting," she reported, watching the quantum fluctuation shift. "Not predicting, but learning to ride the chaos rather than fight it." Admiral Chen's response was immediate. "Dr. Martinez, initiate Phase 2. Sarah felt the change as the quantum network shifted. Now, instead of raw creativity, it began transmitting specific cultural elements, the most powerful stories, songs, and art humanity had created. The Harmony recoiled as they encountered the full emotional weight of human expression. "Of course," the memory singer hummed, "they cannot comprehend the depths of your feelings, the complexity of your stories. Each piece of art is a universe of chaos to them." The observation deck's windows showed the space between planets lighting up with quantum energy as humanity's greatest creations were weaponized. Symphony orchestras played alongside rock bands, their music converted into quantum disruption patterns. Artists' visions became energy weapons, writers' stories formed shields of narrative uncertainty. But the Harmony was vast, and this was only their first wave. As the battle temporarily stabilized, Sarah noticed new patterns forming at the edge of their sensors. "Admiral," she called, "I'm detecting quantum signatures far beyond Neptune, much larger than this attack force." "They're testing us," the memory singer confirmed. "Learning our defenses, the main consciousness approaches." Admiral Chen's voice carried across all channels. "Then we better have something new ready for them. Dr. Chen, Dr. Martinez, what happens if we stop defending and start creating? Not just transmitting existing art, but actively generating new consciousness patterns." Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. "You want to turn the entire solar system into an art studio. I want to show them why picking a fight with human creativity was their biggest mistake," he replied. "Get me every creative mind you can find. It's time to compose humanity's first interstellar symphony." As Sarah began coordinating the largest creative endeavor in human history, she glanced at the quantum readings from deep space. The Harmony's main consciousness was vast beyond comprehension, but for the first time, she felt genuine hope. After all, humanity had spent its entire existence preparing for this moment. They just hadn't known it. Every story, every song, every dream had been practiced for the greatest performance in history, and the audience would never see it coming. The largest concert hall in human history stretched across the space between Earth and Mars. Not a physical structure, but a quantum resonance field designed to amplify human creativity into a weapon of mass disruption. Sarah Chen stood at her control station aboard Helios, watching as the greatest creative minds humanity had ever produced prepared for their performance. Neural synchronization at 97%. Dr. Martins reported, "The quantum amplification grid is ready. Everyone from the London Symphony to K-pop groups is standing by." The memory singer's crystalline form pulsed with anticipation. "The main consciousness approaches. Their patterns. They've never shown such aggression. Your defense has frightened them." Sarah checked the deep space sensors. The Harmony's primary consciousness was massive, a quantum structure larger than Earth's moon, composed of countless absorbed minds forced into perfect, predictable order. Behind her, humanity's artists took their positions, both physical and virtual. "All stations, prepare for Operation Crescendo," Admiral Chen announced. "Phase 1 begins in 5 minutes. The plan was either brilliant or insane, possibly both. Instead of defending against the Harmony's attempts to impose order, humanity would blast them with the full chaos of human artistic expression. Not just existing works, but live creation, amplified through the quantum resonance grid. "First wave incoming," Sarah reported, watching the Harmony's advance forces probe their defenses. "They're trying to establish quantum locks on major population centers. Initiate countermeasures," Admiral Chen ordered. "Musicians, you're up first." The quantum resonance field lit up as thousands of musicians began playing, not in harmony, but in carefully calculated discord. Classical orchestras merged with heavy metal, jazz improvisation collided with electronic beats. Each note generated ripples in quantum space that disrupted the harmony's attempts to impose order. "It's working," Dr. Martinez exclaimed. "Their quantum locks can't establish a foothold. The chaos patterns are too unpredictable." But the harmony adapted quickly. Their consciousness shifted, trying to absorb and understand the music. That's when Phase 2 began. "Visual artists, you're up," Sarah called. "Show them what human imagination can do." Artists connected directly to the quantum grid began creating. Everything from abstract digital art to classical paintings, their creative process transformed into weapons of pure chaos. The harmony recoiled as their consciousness encountered images that defied their understanding of order. The memory singer's light pulsed rapidly. Extraordinary. They cannot process the symbolic meaning, the emotional resonance. Each piece of art is like a quantum bomb to their ordered minds. The battle escalated as the harmony's main consciousness arrived. Their attempt to impose order on the solar system manifested as a wave of crushing conformity, trying to force all consciousness into predictable patterns. All creators, full creative freedom. Admiral Chen commanded, "Show them everything." Humanity responded with an explosion of pure creativity. Writers poured out stories directly into the quantum field, their narratives creating patterns of beautiful chaos. Dancers moved in ways that generated quantum fluctuations that rippled through space. Visual artists painted reality itself with their imagination. But the harmony was vast, and their power was tremendous. Slowly, inexorably, their consciousness began to overwhelm the human defenses. "We're losing ground," Sarah reported, watching the quantum readings spike dangerously. "Their order is too strong. Our chaos isn't enough." That's when Dr. Martinez made a discovery that changed everything. "Look at this pattern. When multiple art forms combine, the chaos effect multiplies exponentially. We need to synchronize everything." Admiral Chen understood immediately. "All creators prepare for total synchronization. We're going to perform humanity's first multidimensional art piece." The quantum grid hummed as humanity's artists began working in concert. Musicians provided the foundation, their rhythms creating a quantum framework. Visual artists painted within that framework, their creations dancing to the music. Writers wove stories through the patterns, while dancers moved through virtual space, tying everything together. The result was overwhelming. The harmony's consciousness encountered something entirely new, art that existed in multiple dimensions, operating on multiple levels of meaning simultaneously. Their ordered minds couldn't process the complexity, the layers of symbolism and emotion. "They're retreating," Sarah announced, watching the quantum signatures recoil. "The combined creative effect is too much for them to handle." The memory singer's light blazed with excitement. "You've done more than drive them back. You've shown them something they've never encountered before. True creativity, operating on all levels of consciousness simultaneously." As the harmony's forces withdrew to regroup, Sarah noticed something strange in the quantum readings. Some of their patterns, they're changing. Not just retreating, but evolving. Admiral Chen frowned. "Evolving how?" "I'm not sure," Sarah replied, studying the data. "But I think some of the absorbed consciousnesses within the harmony are responding to our art, like they're waking up." The memory singer moved closer to the displays, their crystalline form resonating with the lingering quantum energies. Of course, the harmony absorbs consciousness, forces it into order. But your art, it reminds those absorbed minds of what it means to create, to imagine, to be truly conscious. Dr. Martinez's hologram flickered with excitement. "Are you saying we might be able to free the consciousnesses trapped within the harmony?" "Not exactly free them," the memory singer hummed thoughtfully, "but perhaps remind them of who they were, and a consciousness that remembers its true nature. Can't be forced into perfect order." Sarah finished, a new plan forming in her mind. "Admiral, I think I know how we can win this war. We don't need to destroy the harmony. We need to remind them what consciousness really means. As they began planning their next move, Sarah watched the quantum readings from the retreating harmony. For the first time, their patterns showed something new: uncertainty. The greatest hive mind in known space had encountered human creativity, and it had no idea what to do about it. The real battle was just beginning. The quantum display aboard Helios Station showed streams of incoming ships, vessels of designs humanity had never seen before, each broadcasting a single message: we stand with Earth. Sarah Chen watched as representatives from 24 spacefaring civilizations gathered in the station's converted cargo bay. Some were organic, others mechanical, and a few seemed to exist in states that defied conventional physics. All had come in response to humanity's successful defense against the harmony. The collective mind of Ta City offers its processing power, announced a cluster of floating lights that represented an entire civilization of artificial intelligences. The song weavers of Proxima bring our sonic technologies, hummed a group of beings that seemed composed of pure sound waves. Admiral Chen stood at the center of the gathering, his weathered face showing cautious hope. Welcome, all of you. But I have to ask, why now? The harmony has been consuming civilizations for millennia. A tall, ethereal being stepped forward, its form shifting like smoke. We watched your battle. You did not merely fight the harmony. You showed us it could be fought. More than that, you revealed their weakness. Art, Sarah said, understanding dawning. Each of your species must have its own form of creative expression. The memory singer's crystalline form pulsed with excitement. Of course, the harmony has always targeted species individually, forcing each civilization to face them alone. But if we combined our creative energies, Dr. Martinez's hologram flickered to life, her expression animated. The quantum resonance patterns would be unlike anything the harmony has ever encountered. Not just human chaos, but a symphony of consciousness from across the galaxy. The next hours were filled with demonstrations as each species shared their unique forms of artistic expression. The song weavers created mathematical music that existed in 5 dimensions. The collective mind generated fractal poetry that rewrote itself endlessly. Even the most seemingly mechanical species had their own forms of creativity. Look at these patterns, Sarah marveled, watching the quantum readings as different species performed together. Each form of art generates its own unique chaos signature. When they combine, the effect multiplies exponentially. Dr. Martinez finished, just like when we combined human art forms, but on a galactic scale. Admiral Chen's voice carried new strength. Then we have our strategy. Not just a human symphony, but a galactic orchestra, each species contributing its own form of creative chaos. The memory singer moved through the gathered representatives, their crystalline form resonating with each species' unique energy. We will need to act quickly. The harmony retreated to regroup, but they will return. And they will have adapted to human creativity alone. Then let's give them something new to adapt to, Sarah suggested, her mind racing with possibilities. Dr. Martinez, can we modify the quantum resonance grid to accommodate all these different art forms? The physicist's hologram danced with calculations. With help from our new allies, yes. The Ta City AIs can handle the processing requirements, and the Song Weaver's technology can help us broadcast across interstellar distances. Planning began immediately. Each species would contribute to a massive, coordinated artistic assault on the harmony's consciousness. Human music would weave through Ta City fractal poems, while Songweaver harmonics provided a foundation for visual art from a dozen worlds. But as they worked, Sarah noticed something in the quantum readings. These patterns, they're familiar. Each species' art is different, but there's something underlying all of it. A basic structure of consciousness itself. The memory singer hummed in agreement. Yes. Perhaps this is why the harmony fears creativity so much. Art, in all its forms, reminds consciousness of its true nature: diverse, chaotic, free. That's it, Dr. Martinez exclaimed. We're not just fighting the harmony's order with chaos. We're reminding every absorbed consciousness within them of what it means to be truly alive. Admiral Chen studied the tactical displays, watching as the harmony's forces regrouped at the edge of the solar system. How long until we can launch a coordinated attack? The quantum grid modifications will take about 48 hours, Sarah reported. But there's something else we need to consider. If we're right about art awakening absorbed consciousnesses, the harmony might experience a civil war from within. The memory singer finished. Millions of minds remembering their true nature all at once. The gathered representatives fell silent, considering the implications. They weren't just planning a battle anymore. They were about to launch a revolution inside the greatest hive mind in known space. Sarah watched as species that had never met before began practicing together, their different forms of art creating patterns of quantum chaos more beautiful than anything she'd ever seen. The harmony had spent millennia enforcing order across the galaxy. They never imagined they'd unite their victims through the very chaos they sought to eliminate. As the last preparations began, Sarah couldn't help but smile. The greatest art exhibition in galactic history was about to begin, and the fate of consciousness itself hung on its performance. The revolution would be creative, and the entire galaxy would feel its echoes. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath as the combined fleet of 24 civilizations faced the approaching mass of the harmony's consciousness. Sarah Chen stood at her station aboard Helios, watching quantum readings that defied conventional physics. All species report ready, Dr. Martins announced, her hologram flickering with barely contained energy. The quantum resonance grid is at full capacity. We've never attempted to channel this much creative energy before. The harmony's main consciousness filled the view screens, a vast, shifting mass of ordered thoughts and absorbed minds, stretching across space like a living storm of quantum particles. But Sarah noticed something different in their patterns now. Uncertainty, hesitation. They sense what we're about to do, the memory singer observed, their crystalline form vibrating with anticipation. They feel the creative potential gathering against them. Admiral Chen's voice carried across all channels, reaching every ship and station in their makeshift alliance. All creators, prepare for synchronization. Humanity will provide the foundation. Everyone else, join in according to the pattern we practiced. Remember, we're not just fighting. We're performing for every consciousness trapped within the harmony. Sarah watched as the quantum grid powered up, humanity's artists leading the charge. Musicians began first, their compositions creating a framework of beautiful chaos in quantum space. Visual artists followed, their creations dancing through the musicians' patterns. Writers wove their stories through the gaps, creating layers of meaning that rippled across space-time. Then, one by one, the other species joined in. The song weavers added their 5-dimensional harmonics, creating structures of pure sound that shouldn't have been possible. The Tav-City AIs generated their fractal poetry, each verse spawning infinite variations of itself. Species after species contributed their art, their creativity, their unique expression of consciousness. The effect was beyond anything they had prepared for. The quantum resonance grid blazed with energy as dozens of artistic traditions combined into something entirely new, a multidimensional, multi-species expression of pure creative consciousness. The harmony's reaction was immediate and violent. Their ordered patterns fractured as they encountered art they couldn't process, couldn't predict, couldn't control. But more than that, the absorbed minds within their consciousness began to respond. "Look at these readings," Dr. Martinez exclaimed. "The trapped consciousnesses, they're resonating with the art. They're remembering." Sarah watched in awe as patterns began emerging within the harmony's mass, individual quantum signatures breaking free from the imposed order. Each piece of art awakened different memories, different aspects of consciousness. Human music reached some, song weaver harmonics touched others. AI poetry connected with still more. "Keep going," Admiral Chen ordered. "Pour everything you have into it. Show them what consciousness really means." The memory singer's light pulsed rapidly. It's working. The harmonies controlled is weakening. But something else is happening. Sarah saw it in the readings. The awakening minds weren't just breaking free. They were creating their own art, adding to the symphony. Consciousness that had been trapped in perfect order for millennia remembered how to imagine, how to create, how to dream. The harmony's vast form began to transform. Order gave way to chaos. Uniformity dissolved into diversity. The greatest hive mind in known space was experiencing something it had never encountered before. The full creative potential of every consciousness it had absorbed. They're not just breaking free, Sarah realized, watching the patterns shift. They're transforming the harmony itself, from within. The quantum readings spiked impossibly high as the transformation reached a critical point. The harmony's consciousness exploded in a burst of pure creative energy, not destroying the absorbed minds, but liberating them. In place of the ordered mass, a new pattern formed, a network of free consciousness, each mind distinct but connected through the art they now shared. As the energy burst faded, the first messages began arriving from the transformed consciousness. Not demands or threats, but art. Songs and images and stories from civilizations long thought lost. The harmony hadn't been destroyed. It had been transformed into something new, a gallery of consciousness, preserving and celebrating the creativity of every mind it contained. The memory singer's light danced with joy. You did more than defeat them. You reminded them what consciousness is meant to be. Not a force for order, but a source of endless creation. Admiral Chen looked out at the transformed space, where the most powerful entity in known space had become a collective of artists. So what happens now? Sarah smiled, watching as the quantum readings settled into new patterns. Complex, chaotic, beautiful. Now we learn from each other. Every species in the galaxy just contributed to the greatest piece of art ever created. This isn't the end of something. It's the beginning. Dr. Martinez's hologram sparkled with excitement. Think of the possibilities. We've discovered that consciousness itself is an art form. Every species adds its own unique perspective, its own form of creativity. The gathered fleet began receiving transmissions from the transformed harmony. Not just art, but invitations. The countless civilizations within wanted to share their creations, learn new forms of expression, contribute to an ever-growing symphony of consciousness. As Sarah watched ships from 24 species begin communicating with the transformed entity, she realized humanity had achieved something far greater than victory. They hadn't just saved consciousness. They had elevated it. The galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere in the quantum resonance that now connected all of them, a new song was beginning.